Not all at once, just slowly, quietly, until one day they wake up and realize they can't afford the life they had 2 years ago. Now, let me be fair to the other side of this, because I'm not here to sell you a panic. This is not a button somebody presses on a Tuesday afternoon and the world ends by dinner. AI adoption moves slower than hype suggests. Companies are bad at implementing new tech. There will be friction, mistakes, delays. It's entirely possible this whole thing plays out as a slow transformation over 10 to 15 years instead of one dramatic crash. Slow enough that you barely feel it on any given day. And honestly, that's probably the most likely version of events. But here's the thing about slow transformations. The direction is what matters, not the speed. The company that used to hire 50 people is now hiring 35, then 28, then 20. And once a trend like that sets in, it does not tend to reverse just because we'd prefer it to. So even the calm, undramatic version of the story still ends in the same place. A world where good jobs are harder to find, where wage growth is structurally weaker, where economic security is a luxury, not a default. And here's the part that genuinely gets under my skin. Traditional financial media is barely touching this dot, and the reason is almost insultingly simple. It's not clickable. Nobody's stopping their scroll for the long-term labor market implications of large language models. That requires patience, nuance, and frankly, more attention span than a 30-second clip allows for. So instead, the whole story gets flattened into a comforting little lie. That technology always creates more jobs than it destroys. That someone somewhere will figure it out. That it'll all be fine. It quotes a lovely bedtime story. It's just never been a guarantee. Because what if they don't? What if the jobs don't come back? What if the new economy just needs fewer people? Then millions of workers quietly realize they've been edited out. And nobody with a camera or a platform bothered to warn them until it was too late. It's a lovely bedtime story. It's just never been a guarantee. Because what if they don't? What if the jobs don't come back? What if the new economy just needs fewer people? Then millions of workers quietly realize they've been edited out. And nobody with a camera or a platform bothered to warn them until it was too late. It's the 34-year-old paralegal who did everything right and still can't find stable work. It's the junior analyst who gets replaced by a dashboard. It's the call center worker whose job moved to a chatbot that doesn't need bathroom breaks. It's the guy 5 years from retirement watching his industry collapse and knowing he's too old to retrain and too young to quit. That quotes the quiet part of all this that gets me. The economy never raises its voice. It doesn't have to. It just changes the price of your labor underneath you all at once and walks away whistling. So that's the real reason I started this channel. To shine a light on the unglamorous, unclickable stuff that actually moves the ground under your feet. The stuff traditional media won't cover because it doesn't trend. If that's the kind of thing you want to actually understand instead of just scroll past, hit subscribe and turn the notifications on. Because here's the one idea I want you to walk away with. The loud risks, the ones screaming at you from every headline, those are usually already priced in. The risk that actually takes you out is the quiet one, the boring one, the one nobody's watching. It always has been. So brace for impact. Which industry do you think gets hit first? Drop your prediction below. It's not one dramatic breakdown, it's a slow power loss. And most people won't notice until they're already on the side of the road. Okay, so why does one technology wave, one shift in hiring patterns actually matter to you specifically, sitting where you are right now? To answer that, I need to hand the mic to someone with a lot more credibility than me. Okay, so why does one technology wave, one shift in hiring patterns actually matter to you specifically, sitting where you are right now? Meaning, the companies do fine, the GDP looks fine, but regular people? Their wages stagnate, their job security vanishes, and the wealth just concentrates at the top. We've seen this movie before, the 1980s and 90s. Automation hit manufacturing. The Midwest hollowed out. Entire towns built around factories just died. But back then, it was regional. This time, it's everywhere. So here's the lever everybody's staring at. And here's the lever that actually matters. Everyone's obsessing over, will AI take my specific job? Wrong question. The right question is, what happens to my salary, my rent, my grocery bill when 25% of my industry's jobs disappear? Because even if you keep your job, here's what changes. Your raises stop. Why would they pay you more when desperate qualified people are lining up? Your benefits shrink. Companies will restructure. Contract work, gig status, fewer full-time roles. Your city changes. Fewer people working means fewer people spending. Restaurants close. Rents might drop, sure, but so does everything else. Let me show you exactly how it reaches in and touches your actual life, because this is where it gets personal. Start with your career path. 5 years ago, the advice was clear. get a degree, learn a skill, work your way up. That ladder, it's getting rungs removed in real time. Entry-level jobs train you for mid-level jobs. But if the entry-level jobs vanish, how does anyone get experience? We're already seeing this. Employers demanding 3 to 5 years experience for jobs that used to be entry-level. Where do you get that experience if nobody's hiring entry-level anymore? You don't. You're just locked out. Now you're earning potential. Even if you have a job, wage growth has been stuck for years. And it's about to get worse. Because here's the brutal truth. Your salary is not based on how hard you work. It's based on how hard you are to replace. And every month, AI makes you a little bit easier to replace. Now your expenses. You'd think, okay, if jobs disappear, at least prices will drop, right? Wrong. Housing costs? Still climbing. Healthcare? Still climbing. Education? Still climbing. The things that actually matter to your survival are not getting cheaper just because your job got automated. So, you end up in this nightmare scenario where income drops but expenses don't. And that gap, that's where people fall through. Just like they did with the Luddites, just like they did with the assembly line, just like they did with computers, eventually. But what if they don't? Or worse, what if they do appear, but you're not qualified for them? Because that's the quiet part nobody wants to say out loud. The new jobs aren't for the people who lost the old ones. The textile workers didn't become factory foremen. The secretaries didn't become software engineers. They just left the workforce, took early retirement, moved back in with family, quietly downgraded their entire life. And in 2024, we got a preview of what that looks like. A dress rehearsal, and it was ugly. Several major tech companies, the ones that spent a decade saying, we're a family, laid off 15,000 plus people each. Not because they were struggling, they posted record profits. They just realized they could do more with less, and less meant fewer humans. Salesforce, Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, every single one of them cut deep. And the reason given every single time? Operational efficiency, which is corporate speak for, we bought some AI and realized we were overstaffed. And then, just as fast, the news cycle moved on. New headline, new outrage, everyone forgot. But that wasn't the end of anything. That was the trailer. This is the open loop I planted at the very start. So let me close it. I told you an algorithm you didn't vote for might have more control over your paycheck than your boss does. Here's exactly why. Because when Sarah and 10,000 workers just like her start getting quietly phased out, 3 enormous things happen at once. 1. Wage growth stalls. Not because the economy is bad, because leverage disappears. If there are 5 qualified people for every job, nobody's getting a raise. 2. Consumer spending drops. Not all at once, just slowly, quietly. People buy less, they delay purchases, they skip the vacation, and that trickles through the entire economy. 3. The safety net breaks. Because unemployment systems were designed for temporary job loss, not for permanent job category elimination. And here's a fact that almost nobody walking around knows. In the United States, 63% of people are living paycheck to paycheck. Not just low-income workers, people making 6 figures. Which means when the jobs start thinning out, there's no cushion. There's no 6-month emergency fund. There's panic. For decades, the economic engine ran on a simple deal. You work, you get paid, you spend, the economy grows. But that engine requires jobs, real ones that pay enough to live on. And that engine is starting to sputter. Let me introduce you to someone. We'll call her Sarah. Sarah is 34. She's a paralegal at a mid-sized law firm. She's good at her job. She reviews contracts, highlights issues, prepares briefs. She makes $62,000 a year. She's been doing this for 8 years. Last month, her firm quietly started testing something called Harvey AI. Harvey can review a 50-page contract in 11 seconds. It can flag every clause that might be a problem. It can draft a response. It doesn't take lunch breaks. It doesn't ask for raises. It doesn't call in sick. Sarah's boss hasn't said anything yet, but Sarah's been in fewer meetings lately. Her assignments are getting smaller. She sees the pattern forming. Now here's what makes Sarah's situation different from the textile workers or the secretaries. Those jobs were manual, repetitive, low skill if we're being honest. But Sarah went to college. She has a degree. She did everything right. This was supposed to be the safe path, the knowledge economy, the thing robots couldn't touch. Except AI doesn't care about the old rules. Because here's what most people still don't understand. AI isn't just replacing manual labor anymore. It's coming for cognitive work, the stuff that requires a degree, the stuff that pays a real salary. Paralegals, junior analysts, customer service managers, copywriters, bookkeepers, radiologists, entry-level programmers. Not all of them, not overnight, but enough that the math stops working. And here's the sentence that should make the hair on your neck stand up. When you replace 30% of the jobs in a sector, you don't just lose 30% of the workers, you lose wage leverage for the other 70%. Because if your boss knows there are 3 qualified people desperate for your position, why on earth would they give you a raise? Okay, so let me show you exactly how invisible this is. Because this isn't some dystopian future, this is happening right now, and the data is screaming. In 2023, a major consulting firm tracked job postings across 15 industries. Want to guess what they found? Listings for entry-level positions dropped 22% year over year. Not because companies stopped growing, they're growing just fine. They just don't need as many humans anymore. Meanwhile, and this is the part that genuinely disturbs me, job postings that specifically mentioned AI experience went up 240%. So let me translate that. The companies aren't shrinking, the economy isn't collapsing, they're just hiring differently. And if you're not on the right side of that shift, you're getting quietly edited out of the economy. Now picture not just Sarah, but every paralegal, every junior accountant, every content moderator, every call center worker, all realizing the same thing at the same time. There are fewer chairs, and the music hasn't even stopped yet. At its peak, we're talking about tens of millions of jobs being restructured, downsized, or straight up eliminated over the next 5 to 7 years. And here's the part that should genuinely scare you. All of that, the whole wave, rests on one assumption, that new jobs will magically appear to replace the old ones. Right now, in a server farm in Silicon Valley, an algorithm you didn't vote for is quietly deciding whether you'll be able to afford groceries next month. It's never met you, it doesn't know your name, but it has more control over your paycheck than your boss does. Because the biggest threat to your money in 2025 won't be another market crash. It won't be inflation. It won't be whoever's posting from the White House at 3 a.m. It'll be something so invisible that most people won't see it coming until it's already sitting in their bank account, or not sitting there. And the warning signs are everywhere. Jobs that vanish overnight, salaries that somehow stay frozen while everything else climbs, skills that were valuable last year becoming worthless this year. But the answer isn't in Washington. It's not in some Fed meeting. It lives inside the single most disruptive force in economic history, artificial intelligence. And in 2025, it's not coming for other people's jobs anymore. It's coming for the thing you assumed was safe. My name is Rehan, and I've spent the last 6 months tracking something that keeps me up at night. Hit subscribe because the threat nobody's preparing for is always the one that hits hardest. Now, to understand why a technology that most people still think is just a fancy chatbot gets to decide whether you can pay your rent, we need to rewind to a pattern that's played out 3 times in the last 200 years. Because what's happening right now isn't new, it's just faster. Textile workers in England realize that new machines can do in 1 hour what used to take them all week. They're not wrong. The machines are taking their jobs. So they burn the factories down. History remembers them as the Luddites. History calls them idiots. But here's what history doesn't tell you. Those workers were right. Their jobs did disappear. Their wages did collapse. And it took an entire generation before new jobs emerged to replace what was lost. Fast forward to 1913. Henry Ford's assembly line turns car manufacturing from skilled craft work into simple, repeatable tasks. Skilled mechanics? Don't need them anymore. Just need bodies who can turn the same bolt 900 times a day. Wages went up eventually, sure, but not for the craftsmen. Those guys never came back. Now jump to the 1980s. Personal computers arrive. Every office has one. And suddenly, you don't need 3 secretaries and a typing pool. You need 1 person with Microsoft Word. Entire career paths just evaporated. But here's the part everyone remembers wrong. People love to say, see, technology creates more jobs than it destroys. And they're technically right. Eventually, after a decade, after an entire class of workers aged out of the workforce, after cities hollowed out and communities collapsed, the winners in those transitions? They were fine. They wrote the history books. The losers just quietly disappeared from the economy. And that brings us to right now, 2026. Because AI isn't following the old pattern. It's doing something different, something faster, and frankly, something nobody in charge seems to have a plan for.